Hey y'all, it's Sarah and wait for it. I know. And asterisks. We're out of bird food, so it's more of a nap day for us. Hey, so it's Sarah. I thought I would jump on and talk a little bit about mental health, one of my favorite topics. So, I blog a lot about my anxiety disorder. I have a whole video series on it. I'll link that in the description below. But I thought it was worth talking about because I've been talking a lot about colitis, but there's also a huge connection to mental health and how am I managing my mental health in addition to the microscopic colitis. So probably a review for most of you, but I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder in 2014. And my blogs, my videos talk a lot about the way that I've managed that with therapy, with medication, which has been great for me, not for everybody, but great for me. And just also on there's lots of tips for people who are managing anxiety and also tips for you if you're supporting someone with anxiety. So it's not a surprise to say that the physical health has had a big impact on my mental health. I did a video about this very early in the pandemic. Actually, the pandemic overall for my anxiety has not been terrible. I'm naturally pretty introverted. I am fine staying home, especially when it was really risky to go out before the vaccination, before we had as much information as we do now. So that was fine. But then with the colitis, then I started to get more anxious and just really struggling because a lot of what I was doing just wasn't working. So that's incredibly frustrating for me. So what I want to talk about today is just what that's been like, getting back in and rumbling with all my anxiety. So on the medication front, I have adjusted my medication upwards a little bit. As I shared in my medication video, I'm super sensitive to medication, super sensitive. So the doses I take are already quite low. So was able to pick, of the two medications I take normally, was able to pick the one that has less of an impact on the gut. And I think it's worth saying, I'm not going to go into detail, but the gut is known as the second brain. There's more serotonin absorbed in the intestinal tract than there is in the brain. And I feel like gut brain science is just developing. I'm really thankful I have a gastroenterologist and a psychiatrist that are both aware of that overlap, and my GP. But a lot of doctors still don't make that connection. So it almost makes me think about where things like postpartum depression were maybe 20, 25 years ago, where the science is just emerging and we're starting to understand. So it's not a surprise that if the gut is struggling, then the brain and the functioning is going to be impacted, and vice versa. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a researcher. There's a lot of really cool science coming out about this now. So I think if the current protocol that I'm on for the colitis doesn't work, part of the subspecialty is someone who looks at the overlap of the gut and the brain. And just to be clear, this is not where people say, oh, it's all in your head, as in you don't know your own body, nothing's wrong with your gut. That's horrible. Don't go to a practitioner who says that. But it's to say the two are interconnected, and we're just at the beginning of that science. Okay, that was a detour. Come back. So where am I at now? So as I was coming up towards medical leave, I thought I really want to start therapy again. So I've done therapy before, huge fan of therapy. If you can go to therapy, if you can't afford it, there's lots of low-cost ways, subsidized ways to get therapy. And so I was coming into this and I was overwhelmed, not surprisingly. The therapist I had seen before had moved and was not here anymore. And that doesn't matter so much in the virtual world, but I thought, great opportunity to work with somebody else. And I didn't have the energy to go and find someone. So if you've done this before, you go to like Psychology Today has a great guide of licensed mental health practitioners. Your primary care doctor can recommend people, because you do want to make sure they're properly certified and have the proper accreditation and degrees and whatnot. So there are different types of therapists with different backgrounds and degrees, but there are some kooks out there too. So make sure you find someone that is vetted. So I decided, if you are a podcast listener or an NPR listener, you've heard of BetterHelp. And I thought, what the heck? I'm going to try BetterHelp. And it's pretty slick, honestly. First of all, the membership, and there's different ways you can pay, but I believe it's $80 or $85 per session. And it depends on where you live, but where I live here in the Seattle area, that's a great deal. So I was really surprised that that's what they're going to charge. And you sign up for a particular amount of time. So maybe the business model is people come to one session, but they've prepaid for a month, and that's how they make their money. I don't understand the business model. You fill out a lot of forms about your preferences, about what you're looking for. You can even opt in to saying things like, I'd like an older therapist, or I'd like a therapist of color, or I'd like a religious or non-religious therapist. So there are a lot of things that they take into account, and there's some magical matching that happens behind the scenes, and then 24 to 48 hours, you get your therapist. So the first therapist, I'm just going to refer to first initials, was K, the letter K, not K-A-Y. And Kay had a really good energy. Kay had a really good enthusiasm, very empathetic, asking lots of questions, and it felt really familiar as therapy meeting with Kay. Kay also did, and as a coach, I think about the same thing. Your first session is a lot of who are you, what are your goals, da da da. But Kay did give me some things that I could work on immediately, and I thought that was great. BetterHelp also has two other functions. One's a journaling function, and this is private to you. Unless you decide to share it with your therapist. And there's also some seminars that you can attend. So different therapists around the country talking about different issues. So there's seminars on anxiety, on depression, on self-esteem, just things you might be working on in therapy. So I wrote a journal entry and sent it to Kay. So you can opt in to send the journal entries to your therapist, which I did. And this is where it got weird. Kay responded back with, it's this feeling when you don't think people read what you wrote, or you don't feel seen. And it was basically along the lines of, it's okay not to know who you are. It's okay to feel lost. And I did this double take because I reread the entry that I wrote. And then it felt like Kay just copied and pasted something. And it was just bizarre. It was absolutely bizarre. Because I don't see myself as someone who's lost. I'm always growing. There's new possibilities. I know who I am. I know what I value. There's a lot that I know about myself, and there's room for that to change. Both can be true. But I'm not lost. I don't see myself as lost. And that also goes against kind of a coaching philosophy of I don't see myself as broken. Or I'm working not to see myself as broken. Let's be honest. So this is the positive thing about BetterHelp. You can request a change therapist, no questions asked. So I thought, no, I'm not going to try to recoup a relationship when you just feel like this person doesn't get you. And this is, Kay might be a great therapist for some people, was not a great therapist for me. And just like coaching, this is what I tell my clients is I might not be the coach for you, and that's okay. My commitment is to find someone who's right for you. So Kay was not right for me. I requested a new therapist. And when you request a new therapist on BetterHelp, you do fill out some additional paperwork. And it's mainly them trying to understand what about this first match didn't work for you. And maybe it was benign. Some people maybe will work with a therapist for a couple of months and say, I'd like to try somebody else. But I was very clear about what didn't work for me. And then I got matched with L, not E-L-L-E, but the letter L. Tell me 90s kids, you remember this. I feel so old sometimes. So I got matched with L, and whoa. L is phenomenal. L is a piston. And I mean that in a good way, like amazing. Just radiant, brilliant, no bullshit, super direct. And it was very different. It's not tell me about your feelings. L practices cognitive behavioral therapy. And this is what I've been really looking forward to because CBT is amazing. So cognitive behavioral therapy is different than what you might have experienced in talk therapy, although in a lot of therapies, pieces of CBT make their way in, but it's a separate training and licensing system. And it's based on the work primarily of Aaron Beck. I think his daughter, son, one of his children runs it now, but he's in his 90s and he's still practicing, the father of CBT. The idea of CBT is there's the ABC formula, and of course, L has a much more complicated one, but there's some sort of situation. You have some sort of thought. In this case, If it's something we're working on, it's a distortion. It's a distorted thought or a stuck point. And then you have an emotional reaction. And this happens so fast. This is why some people will say, oh, in that situation, it made me feel. Well, you skipped over one part, which was the thought. And the idea of CBT is that by addressing the mistaken beliefs, the distortions, the stuck points, our thoughts, then that changes the emotion. And a lot of these things that are cognitive distortions, there's 16 in Beck's updated model. Beck and I don't remember the co-author. But I look at these and I think, oh my goodness, I some of these distortions are very familiar to me. This idea of one of them is called fortune telling. So looking at the present and predicting the future. The should, oh my gosh, my husband would tell you, I'm the queen of shoulds. Been working on that, but it's still a distortion. The control fallacy, that we have control over things that are going to happen. So CBT is so much more rigorous, which I like. So I'm not going to show you up close, but basically for a situation, this is my notebook, and that is me deconstructing one situation. It's 2 pages of notes. So what's the situation? What thoughts do I have? What are my emotions? All these prompts to challenge the thought, noticing my problematic patterns, coming to what are some alternative thoughts, rewriting old thoughts, and rewriting previous emotions. So what this does is break down piece by piece the distortions that you have, and it is wild. And the reason I say that it's wild, I did therapy probably almost 3 years across 2 rounds of it before I am 3 weeks in, and I feel like I've made as much progress in 6 months of the first round. And the reason I say that is the point of CBT is you're working through these problematic patterns and these stuck thoughts. And then what you're able to do is you're able to recognize the patterns ahead of time. So I'll give you an example. I have not been sleeping super well. I'm not tired, interestingly, but I've been waking up a lot in the night, just not sleeping comfortably. And sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and then here I'm laying in bed in the morning and here's what I'm thinking. Okay, I didn't sleep very well last night. Oh, that's kind of a pain. Because I didn't sleep well, I don't think this is going to be a good day. I'm not going to have enough energy to do, that new dance workout I was looking at. I'm just going to lay around on the couch. It's going to be a waste. Well, there's a distortion there. The distortion is I'm taking where I am now and I'm projecting into the future. And I don't have any data or evidence. And the point of CBT is we're looking at evidence. And as Elle would say, evidence as would hold up in a court of law, not because I feel so. Feelings are not facts. So what was wild is last week I caught myself for the first time in a distortion, in a distorted thought. And I woke up and I was starting to play that familiar tape. And then I thought, wait a minute, you have no evidence to say that this is going to be the case. And oh my gosh, I can feel myself getting emotional because I just realized how much this has been a part of my life, these distortions. And it's wild. It's wild to think that in 3 or 6 months, I could be in a completely different place because of this work. So, wow, that was intense. That was so intense. I love it. I feel like I spend so much time, and this is my calling, helping people through their own change and transitions. And now I have someone helping me do it. And it's so cool. Oh my gosh, this is unexpected. Wow, emotion is amazing. I'm talking about thoughts and it makes me feel it's a sense of relief. It's saying there is a way. And I always believed in therapy. And I think honestly, even if I did regular talk therapy, I would benefit from it again in an incredible way. I learned so much. And I think those 3 years were priming me for this experience. So that has been incredibly helpful towards my mental health. Going through CBT with Elle, I'm forever grateful. I'm 3 weeks in, forever grateful. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and this is especially for my hashtag boss. I don't think he watches my YouTube channel, but maybe I'll send this to him. Hashtag boss, my favorite. And this is going to blow y'all's minds, but I meditate now. And I can't tell you how many people have told me I should meditate. And I have rejected it all this time. And then my physician said, you should probably meditate. And then my therapist is big on mindfulness. So today is day 7 of calm. I tried Headspace, I tried other stuff on the internet. I should do a longer post on mindfulness, but I really feel that it's helping my mental health a lot. And I know people said this, but what I come back to, and I know this because I work with people who are taking on incredible change and really rising to the challenges of their lives, professional and personal, mainly professional lives. One of my colleagues had a really great summary when we work with clients to say, are they ready, willing, and able? And I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to dive into this mindfulness space. And I still kind of have like a with it because I don't like performative mindfulness. And a lot of people in the mindfulness community just, it's icky. It's this, I'm centered and I look a certain way and I talk a certain way and I go to Thailand to be with monks. But it's not from an authentic place. I know people who are in this space, in the mindfulness space, who are truly wonderful and authentic. I work with a lot of people who are very mindful, but they're not bullshitting about it. And they also don't, you know what it makes me think of? This is a totally different vlog, but from my time in church. But there's the parable or the story in the Bible where it's, if you're fasting, don't pull your face, don't look kind of like, I don't remember the exact words, but like, don't look wan, don't look bad, like freshen up, put some oil on your face, have a good countenance, because those who fast or do things for their Father in secret are the ones who are rewarded. So it's against people like the Pharisees who would do this performative fasting, and it was just like, look at me and how holy I am, rather, and that drove me nuts. And when I was in the church, I went to a church where that wasn't really a thing, but like performative piety, to me, I think that's why the mindfulness is triggering, because that's what it reminds me of, is like, look at me, I'm so pious, and actually you're not. Or you're doing it, there's a vanity behind it. So that was, there's a lot to unpack there. Like, we'll do that in another vlog. Religion, that's a big one. But that's, I think, a reason I rejected mindfulness, is that there's just all these, these trappings of it that don't feel authentic to me, and I don't need to meditate in a certain place or with certain people or do it in a certain way. So the app I signed up for was Calm, and I'm on day 7, and I picked a 7-day anxiety meditation. It's 10 to 12 minutes a day, and I think I found the right one. I just put on my headphones and I lay down on the couch, because I don't care if you want me to sit, I'm gonna lay down. And I always thought I would fall asleep, but I come out of the meditation feeling so much better. And it's nice, it's simple, it's straightforward, and I'm finding a way that works for me. I also really find a lot of meditation in yoga, or that's yoga or walking also feel very meditative to me. Napping feels meditative to the cat. So that has also helped with my anxiety. I'm just in the beginning of that journey. I'm also reading an 800-page book on mindfulness. I'm about halfway through. I'm learning a lot from it. There's a lot to learn. So I, in just a month or so, feel I'm in a much better place. So this is my story, but why do I tell the story again? Continue to advocate for awareness around mental illness, especially for people who are managing mental illness, or maybe you've been newly diagnosed with mental illness. I know the pandemic has been super hard on so many folks. So if mental illness is new to you, welcome. We're happy to have you. But also to know that 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 people in the United States will experience mental illness in their lifetime. So if it's not you, it'll be somebody that you know. And just a reminder that you can be an advocate and a support for them, and to know that you're not alone. So there are lots of resources available to you. Go and find them. And I'm still pretty new to BetterHelp, but I have to say, so far, so good. Oh, the last thing in BetterHelp, coming back to therapy, $80 or $85 is what I pay for my weekly session. Come to find out, if your therapist will let you, you can get a second session a week for $25. Now, they're 45-minute sessions, so they're shorter, but that means I'm getting 90 minutes of therapy a week for just over $100. That might seem, again, like a lot to you. And again, there are definitely ways to get subsidized therapy, but in the market that I'm in, that's an incredible deal. When I was in therapy several years ago, I think my therapist offered a good rate. It was maybe $125 to $150 an hour. Another thing worth checking is with your healthcare provider to see if it's covered by your health insurance. I am paying out of pocket. I don't think BetterHelp takes insurance. I think you just pay out of pocket, so you could submit to your insurance, but there's also some other options for that. Anyway, this turned into way longer than I thought. So hey, mental health, focus on yours. I'm focusing on mine, and that's it for the short update from me and asterisks. All right, bye y'all.